Have you ever just kind of unloaded on somebody? I mean, just kind of maybe a little bit what Brian was alluding to earlier. I think that it didn't sound like he just burst into anger or anything, but you just let them know what an arrogant, no good, selfish, prideful jerk they were. And you probably use a lot more colorful language than that. But where you just let somebody know what you thought, because it just pressure had been building. You know, over time, it's like the little things, and it's just the pressure building. And finally, something just went over the edge, and it just flowed. It just came out. And it felt so good. It felt so good coming out because it was just that pressure. It was just came. But once it came out, you had a mess, right? You had to deal with something because now there's this mess, and you either had to try to apologize and work through and clean it up, or the relationship may have ended. You may have just cut off the relationship altogether, or so change that relationship that it would never be the same, and it won't. When stuff like that comes out, the relationship can never be the same. There's a level of trust there that's broken, and it's different from there on. Because once that unloading happens, we have a mess. And most of us realize that most of the time, unloading in anger is not the way to go. That holding it back, that taking control of it, the taking a deep breath, and not saying what you're thinking is a good idea. And we have lots of scriptures to back that up. You know, we've been in the book of Proverbs lately, and there's Proverbs about that. Fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. We recognize the wisdom in that, and a gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. And so we know that it is wise to control, to watch our tongues, to hold our tongues, to bite our tongues when necessary. Just do not say what it is you're thinking. We realize that there's wisdom in that. However, it doesn't really work over the long haul because our tongues aren't fully controllable. This statement, if you're not familiar with the book of James in the New Testament, this statement really stands out to me. No human being can tame the tongue. It is untamable. It is uncontrollable. Now you can keep a rein on it for a while. You can hold on to it. You can bite your tongue for a while, but eventually it's gonna come. It's going to come out. You cannot tame the tongue. It's not controllable. Now, why is that? Why are our tongues uncontrollable? It is because our tongues are directly connected to our what? Our hearts. Our hearts. That the reason you can't control your tongue is because your tongue is connected to your heart, and eventually what is in your heart will come out. And what comes out matters. What comes out of your mouth matters. Here's just one example of proverb. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Your tongue can be a tool to build people up. Your tongue can be a weapon to slay people. Your tongue has that kind of power, and what comes out of it really does matter. So, if you find that your tongue is doing damage rather than building something good, then you have to go to your heart. The solution isn't to bite your tongue. The solution isn't to try to control what you say, because that's not going to keep working forever. The only way to solve that issue is to do the most difficult and most rewarding thing, and that is to address our hearts. So, knowing that, as I was going through just dozens of proverbs about controlling our tongue, about how we speak, about our speech, a couple of heart issues began to come out. That I feel that if we deal with those heart issues, affects not only everything that we say, but it affects every aspect of our life in an extremely positive way. But it's not easy. So let's buckle up and take a look at a couple of proverbs that sort of get us down to our hearts, so that we can control what we say, because what we say is a good thing to say. You know, the best way to control your tongue is to think right, is to love right, is to feel. That's the best way to control your tongue, because simply trying to clamp down on it doesn't work. So let's look at this Proverbs 4, verse 24. Seems really pretty simple on the surface. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Okay? Now, as I read this, after I first read this, I think, okay, don't cuss, right? You know, I shouldn't cuss. I shouldn't tell lies about people. You know, I need to not do that. I don't need to gossip. I don't need to I don't need to boast and brag. Okay, I need to not do some of those things. I don't need to tell dirty jokes. You know, I need to stop that. You know, I get those things. But how many of you guys, and I'm sure a number of you girls, have at different points of your life said, I need to quit cussing at work. I just need to stop that. I need to quit, cussing at work, get around the guys, and it just comes out. I really need to stop that. And maybe your conscience gets to you, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. And it lasts for a little while, but after a while, it just kind of comes out. Anyway, I need to quit telling those jokes and talking about that stuff. It's not good. It's not healthy. I need to quit bragging about my high school football days. You know, it's not really becoming. I just there's some things I need to do, and you decide that, but it just kind of comes back. You know. Or how about you girls? And I'm sure a lot of us guys too. At some points, I need to quit gossiping. I need to quit gossiping with the girls, the guy. You know, we get together and it's just whenever we start talking negatively about somebody, I just need to shut it down or get out of the situation. I just don't need to do that anymore. And maybe your conscience gets to you and you try for a while, and but it just kind of comes back into it, right? It's just a bad habit. But what I want to put forth to you this morning is that it's not a bad habit. That the gossip, that the bragging, that the cussing, that the joke, that those aren't bad habits. Those stem from something much deeper. Those come out of something much deeper, and unless you address that which is deeper, the surface is not going to change. So, what is this perversity? Okay, those are kind of big words. Perversity. What is this corrupt talk? A lot of you might know that the Old Testament, most of it was originally written in Hebrew, and so we have different English translations. And this is the NIV, one we use a lot. But there's the ESV is a very literal translation, kind of more word for word than like the NIV. Not necessarily a better translation, but it's really helpful sometimes to look at. ESV translates this perversity a little differently. Put away from you crooked speech. That's a very literal translation of that Hebrew word, crooked, bent, okay? And put devious talk away from you. Some translations even say dishonest. It's this not what it appears to be, not upfront about it, this sort of devious kind of idea. Crooked speech. What do you think of when you think of a crooked person? Someone who is crooked. Like usually, used car salesman. Thank you. Sorry, and by used car salesmen here, it can be a very honorable job. Okay, no, don't mean to offend you at all. Most of us have experienced some sort of, whether it be a used car salesman or some other kind of deal, some crooked speech. Okay, and we think of someone who is crooked as someone who steals from us. Someone who steals from someone, who takes what it does not belong to them, who is dishonest about what they do. We also think of a crooked person as someone who might do technically what is legal. They do, and it's not, whatever they do is not necessarily, it's not legal, but it is extremely selfish, and it hurts somebody else for their own benefit. It's using people, it's putting yourself in a position to benefit yourself and to the harm of others. We call people who do that crooked. Here's the heart of a crooked person, okay? They care more about what they want than what others need. Okay, a crooked person, what's at the heart of it? They care more about what they want than what others need. Life is about them, and other people exist to serve them. They have a crooked, devious heart. And it is crookedness in your heart that causes you to gossip. It is crookedness in your heart that causes you to build yourself up at somebody else's expense. It is crookedness in your heart that causes you to boast and act superior. It's crookedness in your heart that causes you to talk trash with the guys. Crookedness of heart causes you to say, I love you to somebody, when really you just want something from them. Crookedness of heart leads you to be really nice to somebody as long as they are useful to you. And when they are no longer helping you get what you want, you put them aside. And let's be real. There is crookedness in your heart, and there is crookedness in mine. And we do not deal with that crookedness by trying to be good. We deal with it by allowing God to expose our hearts, bring it to light. By breaking our heart, sometimes gently, sometimes in a very painful way, and then to fill us with Him. You don't effectively stop gossiping by trying to stop gossiping. The best way to stop gossiping is to love people with the love that God has given you, because then you don't like gossip. Then it just gets all, you don't want it. You don't truly stop cussing and perverted talk by trying to knock it off. As long as the heart remains untouched, the mouth will continue to harm itself and harm those around it. So, when harmful stuff comes out of our mouth, the only way to really deal with it is to examine our hearts, to confess what is in our hearts, and to turn to God to heal us and to fill us with Him. And if it's possible for us to go deeper than that, then I believe this proverb does. Proverbs 29:22. An angry person stirs up conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins. When the writer here says an angry person, this is not a person who occasionally gets angry. This is not someone who sometimes gets mad. An angry person is someone who carries anger with them. It's not that they're occasionally angry, it's that they simply are angry. There is an anger there that stays there with them all the time. And it's not always acknowledged, not even always known. Sometimes we can carry anger with us. Well, you may not think of yourself as an angry person. You may not think of yourself as an angry person at all, but you may be carrying anger that you have carried around for so long, you don't even recognize it. You don't even think about it. It's like it's become part of you. And it affects every way you think. It affects everything you do. It affects your entire life, whether you acknowledge it or not. I'm not a psychologist here, okay? So I know I'm going to wade into waters a little bit over my head. But as I observe myself and as I observe others, I see that we get angry when we feel that our lives are being somehow diminished. When we feel that we, me as a person, is being somehow diminished, that is when we get angry. When somebody takes something from us. Somebody takes something from us that diminishes our life in some way. We are angry. When someone actively hurts us. Even when someone doesn't do what we needed them to do, when somebody neglects us in some way, they don't come through for us, they don't do what we needed for them to do, we experience anger. We feel diminished in some way because of what somebody has done. Many of us carry anger from childhood. Maybe your parents got divorced. Maybe they remarried and got divorced and remarried, and your childhood lacked the stability that you needed as a child. And there's anger. Maybe you had an absent parent. A parent who just wasn't there, who didn't care enough to make themselves a part of your life. Maybe who wasn't even able to care enough to make themselves a part of your life. Maybe a parent or someone close to you died. And though they did not intend to abandon you, yet you felt very much abandoned. Maybe you were abused as a child. Maybe verbally abused. Maybe physically. Maybe sexually abused. And while you may have emerged from childhood seemingly bright-eyed and full of life, there was anger simmering below the surface. And it colored the way you looked at life. It continues to color the way you look at life and interact with people and how you deal with problems. Anger from childhood can be caused from disability, from rejection of peers growing up, from rejection of important adults in your life. Anything that causes you to feel less than, anything that causes you to feel not good enough. And of course, our sources of anger don't stop at childhood, do they? Some of us have experienced rejection as adults. From employers, maybe from friends, maybe from a marriage partner. And we have had things taken away from us. Maybe your dreams, what you dreamed for your life, seems to have been just taken away. Maybe your job, money, belongings, maybe your friends been taken away. Maybe even family members. Our own personal failure can cause anger and resentment. We can be angry at God for not making us the way that we want to be. We can be angry at God for letting bad things happen to us. We can be angry at Him for not doing what we asked Him to do, for not doing what we prayed for Him to do. Sometimes our anger from childhood can lead to other situations as adults that cause even more anger. I once talked with a lady who had been through a really bad divorce, and years later she could kind of look back on it and kind of see what was going on a little bit better. And she said, I was just so angry. I was angry as a child because of being rejected in different ways by my family. And I went to college angry. And I got married. I was angry. And my anger drove me. I achieved. I accomplished impressive things. I did lots of stuff. I was successful in lots of ways. But my anger caused me to have to control people and control situations. And it ended up robbing me of what I cared about most in life. And at the time, when we're going through conflicts and having these conflicts with these different people, it was always their fault. It was always, man, they were wrong. They were selfish. They were ignorant. They didn't care about doing what was right. But then, as I look back, I see the common denominator was my anger and my need to control. I would imagine that there are plenty of us here this morning who carry around anger. And we may acknowledge it, we may not. Either way, it is in there and it will remain there until we deal with it. And it will continue to affect the way we live, it will continue to affect the way we talk, the way we think. Anger is a cancer. Anger is a cancer when it is carried inside of us. There is something that Jesus said about anger that, I mean, honest, I wrestled with and struggled with all my life, and only recently did I begin to see this teaching in a different way. And I just want to share this with you. You've probably heard this, and I would imagine at some level been confused by this. This is part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, okay? One of his most famous sermons. He says this: "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment.'" That refers back to the Ten Commandments, the old law. "But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment." Anyone who says to a brother or sister, "Raka," which was a term of contempt, is answerable to the court. Anyone who says, "You fool," will be in danger of the fire of hell. That saying, Raka, that actually, for the Jews, would actually get you put in court, okay? You get in trouble for saying that. But he says, even if you say, "You fool." Here's what got me, though, okay? Go back to the slide. I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister, angry. He put being angry on this level of murder. And that's just kind of confusing, because didn't Jesus get angry? I mean, really, didn't Jesus get angry? I mean, didn't he get angry at the people who were selling stuff for the temple and drive out the merchants and everything? Didn't he get angry at the hypocritical religious leaders? He even got angry with his own disciples because it wouldn't sink into their thick skulls what he was trying to teach them. I mean, Jesus got angry. You look in the Bible, God gets angry. I always kind of reconciled it with, okay, the thing is God gets angry at the right things. Jesus got angry at good things to get angry at. People being mistreated. People being, he got angry at things that are good to be angry about. And what he's talking about here is being angry at things that are not good to be angry about. But you know what? He doesn't say that. Now, it's just always been just a little bit of, what's going on here? And what I think is going on here is that the anger Jesus is talking about, the anger that is condemned, it is the anger that you carry with you. Oh yes, people are going to do things that you get angry. People are going to hurt you or hurt somebody else, and anger is going to come up. Just that natural response of anger. Now, that's not sinful to get angry at things. What will mess you up is carrying it with you. Is packaging it, suppressing it, and letting it simmer below the surface. And taking that anger with you will mess you up. That is the source of, we read that proverb, is the source of all kinds of sin. Those who are angry, the ESV said, a man of wrath. An angry person, someone who carries around anger with them, it creates all kind of sin in their life. It is the anger that is not dealt with and released, let go of, that eats away our souls from the inside out and leads us to speak and to do things that hurt the people around us and ultimately hurt ourselves. An anger problem is a forgiveness problem. We carry around anger because we have not forgiven. And I realize that takes us into something that is so deep and so important that I don't have time for us to dive into that right now. We'll have to wait till next week and dive into that. For now, it's enough for us to examine our hearts, to go to God and allow God to reveal to us what we're angry about and to deal with it. And to deal with it. To Him, to other people, however that needs to be done. But to be able to release that anger so that we no longer carry it with us and it no longer is allowed to destroy and maim our lives. So, that's really what I want to ask us to do this week. Sounds like a fun thing to do on spring break, right? I want to ask you to examine your heart and to allow yourself, because this may be something that you haven't even acknowledged yourself, that you won't let yourself acknowledge, but to allow God to reveal to you anger that you may be carrying around. To allow God to reveal to you crookedness that may be in your heart. And that crookedness and anger can be very, very closely related, because that anger has a way of bringing about a crookedness of heart where you try to control people and control situations and use people for your own ends. And I realize that this sort of introspection and honesty for many of us feels excruciating. I mean, can I go to the dentist instead? Can I do something physically painful rather than try to examine my own heart and what's going on in there? But I just want to encourage you that it is more than worth it to deal with the anger, to deal with the crookedness that is in your heart, and allow you to release it is so worth it. It's so freeing. Because see, anger in your heart robs you. It robs you of joy. It robs you of life. It robs you of relationships, of deep relationships. If you have anger that you're carrying with you, and you begin to deal with it, it won't be too far down the road when you say, oh man, I wish I would have dealt with this so much earlier. I would have saved myself so much grief. I wouldn't have made so many messes that I then had to spend so much energy trying to clean up. I would have been so much more at peace. I would have been able to live. I didn't realize how much that simmering anger deep down was just destroying everything in my life, just dampening everything in my life, was not allowing me to live to the fullest. There's no shortcut in dealing with our hearts. But it is way, way more than worth it. Let's pray. Dear God, I thank you. I thank you that you are a God of love. That while you get angry, you don't stay angry. And while you see us in our weakness getting angry, we are not condemned, but we are called to you to let go and release it and allow you to heal us and allow you to create us and remake us in the way that you created us to live to begin with. God, I know so many of us here surely have been carrying around anger so long that we don't even recognize it. And I pray that you help us do the painful but so freeing work of recognizing the anger in our life, of confessing the anger in our life, and of releasing it to you, of allowing you to work on us and teach us how to forgive. Thank you for being a God who forgives. And thank you for making it possible for us to forgive and be freed from that anger. God, bless us, use us, make us. We pray in Jesus' name.